Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good whatever time of day it is right now, wherever you are. Thank you for tuning into the Conversations with Dr. Don show. The show is produced and broadcast from the Portland, Oregon area. And for your first-time viewers, Conversations with Dr. Don is an ongoing series of one-hour standalone talk shows where I interview interesting people like most of you out there, and like Kevin Fitz, my guest this evening, about who he is as a unique, one-of-a-kind individual, and he is that, and about whatever it is we've decided to talk about. And we're talking this evening about the consumer revolution in behavioral health care, peer-run respite care. Peer-run respite care, that's important. I'm learning more about that since I met you and we've started talking about this. So you put me to work. Wikipedia and Google and all that kind of stuff. But you're so full of so much of other stuff, so I'm going to be learning more as I listen to you.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
So how you feel?
You're a great interviewer, so I'm sure this will go very well.
Oh, I love it. So how are you feeling right now?
Oh, good.
Uh-huh.
I want to talk in concepts that people can, bite-sized concepts that people can understand what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm. And I'm a little old, so I need to have it slow down a little bit for me. And we're fine. You seem so knowledgeable about what you're talking about, and you're emotional about it, which is a great combination for the viewers to pick up on, because you hypnotize them. So let's start with the bio segment here. If I were to ask your best friend, who is Kevin? What would your best friend say? Kevin is what? Be your best friend.
He would say I'm energetic.
In the first person, Kevin is
energetic, highly driven, goal-focused. He is particularly, I've been told an awful lot in the last 2 or 3 years, you really focus on one particular thing and always remind us every time we see you, whether it's in front of the state legislature or it's in print, talking about crystally clear, focused on one particular thing, and remind us over and over again, repetitively, this is what I'm here about, this is what I care about, and this is what we want to see happen.
So that's what your best friend would say about you.
He's driven. He's extremely energetic. I think about this. I'm always recycling, like how to do this better and be good to myself in the process.
You switched to talking about yourself again.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
So how to talk about myself like the guy Kevin would.
Is or was.
Yeah, Kevin is highly energetic. He's highly driven. He's extremely focused, severely focused on his agendas in his work. And I think personally, they would say Kevin is sarcastic. He can be facetious. He can be absurd. And like the psychiatrist Bruno Bettelheim says, I love to play. I'm 53 years old, but I love to play and goof off.
Would your best friend say that Kevin is lovable or likable or any of those things?
Yes, my best friend would say that I'm very lovable, although sometimes hard to take because I'm like the Energizer Bunny.
And you're intense.
Yeah.
And you have a great smile.
Good. I'm ready for my close-up, Ellery.
Ellery's our director, as you know.
Oh, okay. All right, good. We're in capable hands then.
So when were you born?
I was born in 1965.
And where was that?
Sacred Heart Hospital, which is in Eugene, Oregon.
Catholic hospital.
Yeah, I think it's now part of Peace Health, but yes, Catholic hospital.
Are you Catholic?
Episcopalian?
Close enough.
Yeah, close enough, yeah.
And why were you born?
I wasn't planned. I have 2 older sisters, and they told my mother, look, you're feeble and weak to the degree that probably having any other children would overstress you, so we suggest against it. But that wasn't in the plans of, it was late summer. I was born in March, so it was late summer that my mom and dad, there I was, and these things happen. So
you're talking about the biology and those kinds of things. Any other reason why you were born?
Not sure. If I had to define it, my meaning on earth is to bring less pain and less suffering to people who have gone through similar experiences that I have, with terrifying states of mind and moods, and bring a better sense of comfort and a better journey for those people who suffer with these extreme states of moods and thoughts. I think that's my mission on planet Earth. If I won $1 billion, I would still, this is what I would like to do for a living, exactly what I'm doing now. But I'd be a lot more successful at it because I'd have 10 lawyers and I'd have, you know, the best lobbyists in the game. Yeah.
Yeah. And anything unique about your national cultural heritage that's worth mentioning for the viewers? Anything unique about that?
Not particularly. I've just got a DNA test, and 95% of me is all somewhere as far back as it could go from the British Isles. And then the other 5% is around Istanbul, which is kind of interesting, but I don't know much about that. So.
Okay. And you're Episcopalian?
Episcopalian, yeah.
Was that how you were raised, as an Episcopalian?
Yes, I was. And the thing that I'm very thankful for, the sense of community and the sense of kids that we went to high school and youth group with, who had a very sort of normal lives. They didn't have an alcoholic father or a mother who had, you know, mental health problems and drug addictions. And that was very stabilizing to be around these kids whose upbringing was not as chaotic, challenging, and painful as mine. It was a saving grace, I think. The Episcopal Church, the community around it. Now, the religious, the theology stuff, I was always pretty light on that. But I did find the rituals. We stand up, we sit down, we pray, we have the incense, the purple robes, the beautiful midnight mass. It's very similar, like you said, to the Catholics.
I'm ready to do a mea culpa. Okay. Are you a practicing religious person nowadays?
No, I'm not. I would say that I am somewhere in between agnostic and forever searching for some universal sort of rhyme or reason that some days seems more attuned, like Carl Jung's idea of synchronicity, and there's some magic in the universe, and other days feel like I'm in a desert looking for that. But I don't think I'm searching for that. I don't ever feel like I could particularly define it, but it does intrigue me. But it's hard to define as anything that would be defined as monotheistic.
You're a delight talking.
Well, listen, I can get long-winded, so let me know if
I will.
Oh, okay, good.
Right.
You know.
Hey, and your formal education, how about that? How much of that have you had?
I dropped out in high school in 10th grade, and then did not go back formally until I went and got my high school equivalency degree.
I did that too.
About 4 years later, yeah.
You were dropped out of, what does that mean, dropped out of? You were dropped out of?
I missed more 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th grade than I was present for.
Me too.
In fact, I missed so much of my 8th grade that they held me back again. I did 8th grade twice, which is very difficult for one's self-esteem and adjustment as a teenage boy. So I didn't go to much school at that time. My parents were divorced. I was living with just my father, who was in late-stage alcoholism. I was the oldest kid there. I'd just been separated from the nest of my mother and my 2 older sisters. So it was a very challenging period, particularly challenging.
And your father was a drinker?
My father was a functional alcoholic, went to work almost every day, but would come home night after night and down a bottle and a half of Cutty Sark scotch and black out, pass out 5, 6 nights a week over and over and over again.
That must have been hard for you to take.
It was challenging. Where was my parent? I was in the sea of initiation, moving from a young boy into puberty, going through the jungle and all the initiations and the rituals and all the stuff that you go through with teenage boys of finding where you fit in the pack, coming home with all these battle wounds, broken nose, beat up, bloodied, and Dad was blottoed, passed out on the couch or completely drunk and emotionally walled off.
So then were you switched on to be the caretaker for your dad?
Yes, we did. I went and saw a psychologist, and I used to tell him I was having nightmares because we used to lift Dad up off the couch, me and my brother, my 14 months younger than me. We used to put him, when he was blacked out, we used to walk him to the bedroom night after night after night for 2 or 3, 4 years. So I was worried, terribly worried, that I'm going to come home sometime and Dad's going to be dead. Dad's going to be dead. So he said, you need to start looking at yourself, because you're getting in problems with your anger problems and you're acting out at school and your rebelliousness, and that's going to set you up for a bad road.
When did they discover how bright you are?
I think it was in 4th or 5th grade. I used to wear glasses. I used to wear glasses and then buttoned up my shirt like this and wore high-water pants, dippity-doo. My mom dressed me as a greaser, even though it was the mid and early 70s. He dressed me like I was somebody out of out of the 1950s, of one of Buddy Holly's band. And the kids were relentlessly cruel towards me.
Yeah.
They called me, I was exceptionally gifted as a reader in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. I was reading at 11th grade level and spelling at 11th grade level. I was exceptionally way beyond. The kids called me Brainiac and Four Eyes. The difference is I started getting interested in girls in 6th grade, and I took off my glasses and I started buying my own, do you remember David Cassidy? He used to be, so I started getting embroidered blouses, embroidered men's shirts, and started feathering my hair and took off my glasses, and I completely lost interest in academics, and all he was obsessed on was meeting the young girls at the roller skating rink and having a girlfriend.
How many standard deviations are you above the mean?
Oh, now or was I then? Because I think I've lost a lot of cognitive power due to my alcoholism.
So you were an alcoholic.
I was an aggressive alcoholic all through my teens, and it got worse and worse and worse, and a polysubstance abuser. I was sober for 11 years, and I think I was at the apex of my career in 2001, and fell back again into 14 years of aggressive alcoholism, severe mental health, psychotic breaks, 7 or 8 of them, homelessness, criminal justice system.
Oh my God.
Getting my partner kicked out of 4 different places due to persecutory delusions. So that's probably a tough, big phrase for our audience, but the idea that someone was persecuting me to the degree it was making me, that I was maddened and I acted out, and it was very challenging. I called that from 2002 to 2014 the lost years. And finally I had a psychologist who said, I'm not giving up on you. You can stop drinking. You can do this. And she was a key in helping me save myself from drowning in this alcoholism. It was exacerbated, so having the alcoholism, but also having the psychosis and the terrible fearfulness made coping socially very difficult.
Was that a result of the influence with your dad, or is the genetic? What's the contribution?
I think there was probably the intersection between tremendous familial stress, chaos, emotional violence, bullying at school, the intersection in the late teens of polysubstance abuse, cocaine particularly, and then I was inadvertently dosed with PCP in the military, and 2 hours later I was floridly psychotic.
Oh my God.
And I went AWOL from United States military training. So that intersection of tremendous familial stress in the nest, or the lack of a nest, emotionally unavailable, drunken father, being abused in high school and junior high, beat up, called homosexual, all these terrible things. That stress, and then I think kindled my hyperreactivity, and did PCP and was floridly psychotic for several months, and that changed the course of my life.
Are you clean now?
I am clean now, yeah.
For how long?
This time around I had a slip on July 1st. I had a alcoholic relapse on July 1st. But I've been I have been on the positive side out of the last 3 years and 10 months, minus 2 days, 2 slips. So. Old habits die hard, Doctor.
I can bet you.
Yeah,
I bet.
yeah,
I bet. Yeah.
yeah.
Wow. Thank you for being so out front with your reality of how you see yourself. There's a genuineness about you and honesty. Easy to trust you.
Well, I hope so. I hope so that people aren't put off by these ideas of, that I live with a diagnosis of schizophrenia, and I've had suicidal depression, and I've had extreme psychotic episodes. A lot of times when the media talk about psychotic episodes, it's, the guy with the axe or something, and that sort of sense of cultural discrimination or, rigid ideas about what it means to lose your mind is sometimes challenging. But all of my friends, 90% of my friends are people who are, recovering from, chronic issues of disease or of mind and body. So, so it makes me feel at home. And as I get older, and lots of more people are running into struggles with, failing body or slipping cognitive gears. So.
Yeah, I'm listening to you and occasionally flashing back on my own upbringing, because I was a baby of 12 children, and I'm a depressive personality, ongoing, how I am. And I've tried to, I was going to kill myself when I was early teens, and I had the butcher knife poised against my gut, tears streaming down my face, praying for what it took to kill myself. So I've been there. And I was hospitalized twice through the years, many years ago, from a major depressive episodes. So I've been there. I've not been to the extent that you have been, but I have an idea where you're coming from. And
so with the butcher knife poised on your near your solar plexus or something?
Yeah.
So how did that work out positively? I mean, what transpired to keep that?
I was standing over the kitchen sink because I was assigned, being the baby, the youngest, to do the dirty dishes, which was tons of them with this big family. And I hated the dirty chores that was assigned to me, being the youngest. And again, I'm forced to do dishes. And I was just so heartbroken and so disappointed and so terribly unhappy. Plus, I had severe allergies from birth. So I had the butcher knife poised against my, paying for what it took to plunge it in. And I guess I'd seen these Oriental movies about how to carry or something like that. And at the last moment, I decided, no, I don't need to do that. There's something, I can't identify what it was, that says, no, don't do that. I didn't put words to it, but I stopped. And I continued on and washed the dishes anyhow, and the crying sort of diminished. But they weren't even aware I was hurting so bad. They're all around me, So I've been there. And then I had a period where I was an alcoholic. I was in Yokohama for 27 months, and I had an addiction problem there with heroin. And luckily, they shipped me back to the States just in time to I'd sold all of my Form 32, all of my military stuff to get a few bucks to buy some stuff. So I've had some adventures, and I went through the period. I got off of the heavy-duty drugs with alcohol, and it took a long time to get off of that. And then I've been clean and sober, so to speak. Luckily, marijuana didn't work for me, because if I took a whiff, I'd go bananas.
Oh, okay.
I was just so susceptible to it. So I've had some similarity, but not like the extent that you're talking about. I say that to you to let you know that I have an idea of where you're coming from.
And were you a psychologist at the time? Oh, you weren't?
I dropped out of junior high school, and because I was too bright for him in elementary school. And finally, after many years, I got my GED and went back to school, and I changed schools any number of times and changed my majors. And I had licenses as a electrical contractor, and then a few other things I ventured into, but none of that worked. And I became a technical writer. and enjoyed that very much, and decided to go back to school. What do you really want to do, boy? And this is when I was in my early 40s. And started off all over again. I had no credits for 14 degrees, I think.
Yeah.
And being a psychologist and working with people and learning about myself has been so rewarding, and I'm still learning. I still got to shrink, and now and then I go for a tune-up. So that's my history, which we're supposed to be hearing your history.
Well, I think it's fascinating. I think it's very interesting. I'm always particularly interested in, I've said Carl Jung earlier, I don't think he was the guy who invented it, but the archetype of the wounded healer, I think, is fascinating.
All of those models of Western psychology have some validity to them, as long as we don't lock into one and say, this is it, this is the answer.
Right.
I've had my basic training in transactional analysis with
Am I okay and you're okay, or?
Yeah, that's it, yeah. See? So,
Eric Byrne?
Yeah.
I'm okay, you're okay? My dad had that book.
I'm okay, you're so-so.
Well, let's let the audience decide after they get done viewing this. Are we both okay? I think so.
I know so.
Yeah.
Sometimes I get confused, and I'm pretty soon I recognize that was a mistake, that conclusion. So, and formal education, anything?
A year of community college. 1 year of community college, psychology and sociology, and some basic English comp and math, but mostly sociology and psychology.
Yeah, but I ask you a question. I know the answer already. Any other education that would be useful to report to the viewers?
School of Hard Knocks.
What does that mean? And you've already talked about it.
Yeah. No other, certificate training like I've gotten training in the state of Oregon. Offers a training program for peer wellness specialists and peer support specialists, certified recovery mentors. So I've gotten training as a peer wellness specialist. I got training as a volunteer hospice CNA. So some of that
A people helper of some sort.
Yeah.
So you have a partner, boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, or whatever?
I have a partner that we met in 2000. And she moved out here from New Jersey in 2004. Yeah, and
she's with you now?
She's been with me the whole time.
She hasn't really found out about you yet.
She saw me she met me in Washington, D.C. amongst the peer movement, the leaders in the mental health consumer psychiatric survivor movement. I was emceeing a panel, a day-long conference panel of 10 of our luminaries. And so I was the young whippersnapper emceeing the whole event, and she worked for a large group in the Philadelphia area that did a lot of policy and outreach to folks like we do here in Oregon, and she saw me sitting in the audience, and she said she had a crush on me from right from the start. And then we met, and then we dated long distance, started in 2000, and then ultimately in 2004, which my life had hit rock bottom, and it stayed there for 10 years. And so she stayed with me through some really difficult, challenging. People say, why would a woman stay with a man who's getting her evicted from her apartment 4 times, who's in and out of the county jail due to his psychotic breaks and his paranoid agitation, why, doesn't have a dime to his name? Why was... And I was like, okay, well, you're really ticking up my, my self-worth. Is it all based on that? Or that I'm, when I'm in a good state, I'm pleasant company, I'm intellectually curious, I used to have a very high and active libido. There are other things, about it. It was like, well, I've added it up, and being in a relationship with this guy is a dead end. But she's, fortunately, every time, I've had probably 40 or 50 psychotic episodes in my life, and every time I've always had, more or less a monogamous long-term partner who has just been so wonderful to me, so accepting and heartful and kind and non-punitive and non-critical of, the fact that I'm dealing with an extreme state of mood and thought. She was pained by my alcoholism and really believed that I could turn it around like my psychologist did. So having somebody believe in you, who's, you know, who believe in you, whether it's a brother or a sister or a clergy member or a psychologist or a school teacher, can be the difference that makes the difference.
I think so.
Yeah.
So let's continue on. Any children, grandchildren?
No children, no grandchildren, no children.
How would you characterize your political persuasion? Left, right, center, or off the chart?
I would say that I am liberal, mostly left-wing liberal. I'm somewhat I'm probably more complete, aggressively libertarian on what you choose to do in your bedroom or in your living room or whatever between consenting adults. So I think I'm probably I'm a libertarian on social issues, extremely libertarian, and I think on other issues, economic issues, having a robust welfare state or a safety net, I'm all in favor of that, and I probably, you know, probably a comfortable progressive Portland Democrat for most.
You like Bernie Sanders?
Yes, I do like Bernie Sanders.
Are you still enamored of Donald Trump?
Am I still enamored of him?
I'm trying to trick you.
It's interesting that you say that, because before the first psychotic break at 18 or 19, I was trying to figure out what do I want to do with my life. I thought, I want to be Calvin Klein. I want to be a very famous fashion designer. My uncle worked for a bank in Chicago, and he was a very successful commercial real estate banker. And I thought, I want to do this. I want to do what he's doing. So I wanted to be Donald Trump or Calvin Klein at 18 years old. And then I had a psychotic break, and I didn't want to do any of that. I wanted to be Florence Nightingale. So, well, the male version of Florence. Yeah. So I'm glad. So no, I'm not. I'm disappointed, but I do think it's only a temporary blip. I think I think the id, or the unbridled sort of, you know, self-absorption.
Yeah.
I think he's only here for 4 years at max, and I think we'll be moving on. But yeah. So the thing I appreciate that caught my attention about Bernie Sanders more than anything else, income equality. Besides global warming and besides the robots taking all our job, income equality, inequality. The rich getting. I mean, how many 5 billionaires own half the world's wealth or something ridiculous like that?
Mm-hmm. So let's continue on.
Okay.
The difference between sympathy and empathy. Is there a difference between those two?
Sympathy
and empathy. The difference between those two characteristics.
I don't really have a good explanation for the word sympathy. I don't really, except when I put it on a greeting card to somebody who's passed away. You know, my sympathies for your parents passing. But I don't really have a felt sense state of what that is exactly. But a sense of empathy, I'm glad you asked this question, because I have a theory. Here's my theory.
Please.
When we see a person who is in psychic or emotional distress, that we have, I don't know, this is just a hodgepodge, but this is a hybrid theory I'm working on.
I want to hear it.
If we see a person who's in emotional distress, I think there's two options: to open ourselves to that person experience, or to harden ourselves. I don't think there's any middle ground. I don't think there's just plain flat apathy. I think that we either harden up our sensitivity to them, or we open our heart to them. And I fear that my lovely state of Oregon and Portland, there are a lot of people who are becoming hardened in their heart to be able to feel the wavelengths of those people who are in distress and are suffering emotionally so greatly.
Yeah.
And I bleed every time I go out the door from having an excess of empathy. Like, I remind myself, you're going to be wounded just taking the bus ride downtown, because there's lots of folks who are in horrible state and non-attached to anybody of meaning in their life, and just abandoned and lost. And that is painful for me to witness.
Painful for me. That encapsulates it, yeah. Okay.
Is that, but I don't know what sympathy, like, I don't know what, I don't.
I can say, oh.
Give me an example of a sympathetic.
You're sad, and I hear what you're saying, and I can see that, and so I'm sympathetic to what you're feeling. Whereas in empathy, I'm sympathetic to what you're feeling, what you told me you're feeling, what I'm seeing, and at the same time, I'm experiencing the same thing as though I am experiencing that pain or that sadness or that unhappiness. Sympathy and empathy, it's a fine way of looking at it. And I'm glad that I am, quotes, if there's such a thing as being overly empathetic. I don't think that's really a fair judgment, because I embrace the fact that I see somebody who's particularly psychologically in trouble, and I won't linger there too long, because I will then start feeling the same thing that they're feeling. But it's important for me to make a distinction between sympathy and empathy, so that I can be more accurate in being empathetic, and rather than thinking I'm being empathetic. But then after I've seen you as you are right now, and then 30 seconds later I'm off someplace else in my mind. That makes sense?
Yeah.
So, so memberships in political, social, or civic organizations, you want to tick off a few of those that you're involved
So
in?
I'm very involved as a supporter of healthcare for all, single payer. I'm very interested in that particularly. I'm a member of 350 PDX, looks at the impact of global warming and climate change. I think that's really, I don't go to the meetings as much as I should, but I think that's a very important issue. I'm also a very active member of the Democratic Party Apparatchik, the worker bees, go to town halls, volunteer at the parties, and I'm particularly interested in that part of trying to engage young people, of like, come on, get involved in this. And you don't have to be born with a silver spoon in your mouth and go to the hottest law school, or to Yale and get a master's in public health. You can be a recovering alcoholic or recovering person living with schizophrenia and still be actively engaged on the ground in real politics in your community. So.
And that's useful for you. It has meaning for you, those things that you're doing, the organizations you're associated with. Yay. And any persons from the past or alive today that you particularly admire or admired or look up to? Sometimes a person will have one or two names that'll come to mind, and sometimes they don't.
I have. There's the personal that I've had a personal relationship, and then there are those people in literature and in public policy. There's three people that I think fundamentally that I've met but never had a personal relationship with them. Noam Chomsky, learning about the teachings of Noam Chomsky, Ralph Nader, Cornel West, those three. Also learning about Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, and all of the other, and W.E.B. Du Bois, and those folks. I never met those, but those were extremely inspiring individuals.
You're reading my mind. I feel that way about those same people.
So those were people, although I met Noam Chomsky at the Unitarian Church downtown Portland at a conference, but it was only to ask a question. I met Ralph Nader for walking out of a hotel in Washington, D.C., and I said, Mr. Nader, I've been a fan of you forever. Can I have your autograph? And he said, I'm sorry, young man, I don't give autographs, but what's going on with you? I'm walking to the Washington Post. Do you want to walk with me to the Washington Post and talk? And I thought, holy shit. 1999, walking down the streets on Pennsylvania Avenue towards the Washington Post with Ralph Nader for about 12 blocks. Fascinating.
No more mild, closer cuss words. It's a family show.
Oh, did I cuss? God, sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's really not really a cuss in the general run of things, like, don't give a shit and ass and like.
Yeah. Oh, but
just in case we get carried
very excited. That was very exciting.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah. And then I've had here locally, I've had a whole bunch of older men who have been administrators and recovering alcoholics who are 15, 20 years older than me. A whole slew of them, 20, 30 gentlemen who have been older elders, mentors of me, and there's some of them that are still living that are a central part of my life today, that I always ask them questions about, how do I thread this needle? How do I tone down my emotionality? How do I not let them see my inner critic, sabotaging my confidence in certain situations?
Yeah.
How do I write a decent, clear letter that hits the bullet points real clearly? And those people still exist in my life today. Yeah.
Do you meditate?
I do meditate. I don't sit on a cushion and chant Om, but I meditate. It's a simple meditation. I close my eyes and I put my thumb on my sternum and I try to soften around that with my breath and my muscle skeleton. I close my eyes. And it is the best cure for my madness of my head and turning the throttle down from a 13 to a 6 or 7. And
how long do you do that each session?
About 15 to 20 minutes.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm putting that in my hopper.
This might seem like a real oddball sort of thing, but what I've also added to that mix, I should say, saying this seems kind of bizarre, but I have a CD and it's called Womb Sounds. So it attempts to emulate when we were in the mother's sac for 9 months, what it sounded like to the best they can reconstruct it to the baby in there. And I play those. It has a heartbeat and some water slushing around, and it's very interesting. And I play that, and I close my eyes, and I do my heart-centered meditation. And it really, and I take it with me. Like Gandhi said, take your cave on your back. I take it with me in places of like, what's going on? You need to go back to that place that you've established that you're able to get zen and calm down. And I take it with me all over the place. So it's a huge part of my sanctuary.
You're delightful. Yeah. So we better take a little break here before they yell at me because I didn't take a break. Okay, we are back, and thanks for staying tuned. And because we've been wandering all over the place and having a good time. And for your viewers who missed the opening of the show, Conversations with Dr. Don, it's an ongoing series of 1-hour standalone talk shows where I interview interesting people like Kevin here for sure, and about who he is and who those interesting people are as unique one-of-a-kind individuals, and about what is our topic title today, the consumer revolution in behavior health care, Peer-run Respite Care. Now we're going to start talking about Peer-run Respite Care.
Okay.
You want to start us off?
Yeah, but I do have an opening salve, a question for you.
Sure.
So put yourself in this headspace. We've never met before. You see me walking down. So say that you're a psychologist and you're going to a town hall or you're going to a state legislative meeting. You look across the room and you see this statement, this phrase, Insane Liberation Front. Danger, Will Robinson, get away, this is intriguing, or it's, I don't understand. Does it provoke anything initially? Like what, is there some gestalt that grabs you, or?
I'm not the objective comment or reaction to that because I'm a psychologist.
Yeah, it's true, I know that, right.
So for me, since you asked me the question, now I'm examining it a little bit, what that really means. And for me, it means seeing people who are insane as human beings rather than a clinical case or somebody who's exceptional and needs to be avoided, for example. And affront meaning a confrontation or to speak and be in support of seeing people who are considered insane as struggling human beings deserving and needing love. And that sort of trust despite who and what they seem to be at the time.
Very good.
That make
very
sense?
Good. Yeah, very good. Very good. Would you like to join? We need more foot soldiers for the movement, Doc.
Let's talk some more about it later.
Well, okay.
Possible, yeah. I've got so much on my mind since I retired many years ago. I'll be 90 in December, you know.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I can't take on anything more, but now and then, because you're so engaging in the things you're about, I'm curious to learn some more about what you're about too and see if perhaps I can be a part of what you are to some degree.
Do you ever take suggestions? Because I know a few of my colleagues that I think you would find equally fascinating, but a little bit, a little different in their own sense, but are doing social justice stuff in this arena that are fascinating.
Yes.
Like some that lead multi-million-dollar corporations that have stories to tell and a spark and an infectiousness that I think your viewers would really like to hear from, especially with the back and forth with your gentle interviewing style.
Let's do that.
All right.
Oh, yes, because they need a voice.
Yeah, they do, yeah.
I see myself in some of them to the extent that I was having serious difficulties, like hospitalized twice, but I'm repeating myself now. So let's go on now with what you're about in your life now, pretty much.
Okay.
Peer.
Yes, peer. So should we unpack that while we talk about peer? So I want to we're talking about phraseology, and there's three terms that I want you to understand: mental health consumer, psychiatric survivor, and peer support specialist. So there are folks that define themselves as, I got bad treatment from the psychiatrist or from the institution of psychiatry, but I survived it. I now am free. I'm going to psychotherapy. I'm going to AA meetings. I'm liberated from that psychiatric treatment. I survived it. And maybe they involuntarily gave me too much Thorazine or ECT, but I'm here, I lived to tell the tale, and I'm a survivor of that psychiatric treatment, psychiatric survivor. Mental health consumer is probably more straightforward. I am a person who consumes mental health services, so I'm a mental health consumer. So there's the psychiatric survivor, which is the more political civil rights, hands off my body without my choice, doc. Mental health consumer is, I'm consuming your mental health services, but I'm going to go to the county, the insurance agencies, or the state and ask them to tell Dr. Don I want a little bit more rational modal therapy and less, back rubs, or vice versa. So
less pharmaceuticals.
Yeah, yes, pharmaceuticals. Yes, I want choice on the menu. So mental health consumers. And then the peer movement was the idea of one alcoholic helping another. I've had breast cancer. I go to a breast cancer support group with other survivors. The peer movement grew from that as, let's be part of the system giving social, emotional, and community supports by people who have been there, not doing diagnostic work, not doing some of that sort of stuff, but actually connecting people to lives of meaning in the community, to mirroring a sense of empathy of, I know what it's like to be suicidal.
Connecting. For me, that's bottom line.
It's relating to people who you don't feel they'll judge you because they've been through similar experiences and they can relate. So the peer movement has now grown over the last 10 to 15 years as a significant part of the mental health service delivery system, particularly here in Oregon and several other states. So when we say peer, what we're talking about, and it could be loosely defined as somebody who is in recovery from alcoholism or addiction, or somebody who lives with a long-term serious mental health issues or challenges, but they have gotten their life back on track to the degree that they become helpers or community connectors for people who are still suffering and still need a way out of the darkness. So that's what we talk about when we're saying peer, what a peer is.
That was so well said.
It was?
Yeah.
I want to be more like, get it down, shorten it, shorten it, shorten it.
Got it. And I'm going to be watching this when we play it back because we don't have much time left. And I want to be sure that I get those three things clear in my mind, because I'm hearing what you're talking about in a different sense, even after all these years of being a shrink or a psychologist. That's kind of stuff, a clinical psychologist. So say some more about what we're talking about now.
So the goal, so what we're trying to establish is, we're trying to look at the continuity of care. If you are a public mental health recipient in Oregon, what is the continuum of care? We have the state hospital here, we have the group homes here, we have the community outpatient clinics, which you would go into sometimes 2 or 3 times a month, see your case manager, your psychiatrist. So we have all these different levels of care depending on your need structure, your independence, ability to care for yourself. So we're really pretty good at funding what I call a person on fire system.
Sure.
So someone's got their hair on fire, we draw the resources to the front gate of the highest, most severe, which is our acute care psychiatric crisis system.
Yeah.
Somebody needs to be in a white room, be able to shut the door, be able to have a nurse check on them every hour, every half an hour, check in. Are you feeling suicidal? Can you manage? Do you want a PRN? Do you want to sleep, et cetera, et cetera? So extreme, where you're in a locked facility and you have 24-hour medical supervision and attendance, constant attendance by medical professionals. There has been long-term, they've been halfway houses for alcoholics. There's been, old houses in Portland that used to serve as part of our respite system. But what we're seeing, because the top level is so expensive, it is $1,500 a day, $2,000 a day to keep a person in in the most intensive, highest level of care. So what we're looking at is 14 other states have been experimenting with the idea of, what if we peeled it back once? Say that Kevin, was having a very challenging mood or a panic attack, but I was still able to manage and control my behavior, although I was having great fears and pains. Where could I go around some comforting, skilled, trained folks that I could be with, so I could be in the community of somebody, in a sense, but I had the choice to leave, but I could also check it with them in through the day and saying, this is how I'm doing, I'm glad you're here, I can connect with you, and if I need to go to that other level of care, you could help access that and make that happen. But sometimes what I need to do is just go chill out in a safe place with the people there, with a safe community and a safe milieu.
Safe.
And so respite has existed for a long time in our community mental health system, but it's just the last probably 20, 30 years that peers, that recovering alcoholics and folks who have recovered from mental health issues are actually the people running, operating, and providing the services in that place. And is there a difference between the trained clinician who doesn't have the experience or the person the peer doing it? One thing that we find is, what is healing? Love, community, a sense of meaning. These professionals and these people who run these respites now, I'm sure they all do a great job. But what we bring extra to the table is the sense of natural community, a natural community of people who have been there and are developing culture around this. We have events, we have town halls, we have lectures, we have conferences, we have parties. All of that culture connected to the recovery movement, we participate in. And so just the mirroring of community, the mirroring of lives of meaning, the mirroring of unpaid friends that you can relate to and accept you and don't judge you or reject you.
Insane liberation.
Insane liberation front, right. So move you from the back ward into a life of meaning in the community. You still live with your challenges and your slips and some of your issues, but you're in a community of other people who are learning to adjust to that and deal with their own issues, but they're providing emotional and psychological support between you and your home. And it's a fantastic way. I hate to just be a bean counter and say it's $2,000 a day to keep you in the psychiatric ward. It's $300 a day to keep you in peer respite. But it also pays dividends in helping you grow umbilical cords to other people. Yeah. So we're trying to promote that in Oregon on a tiny, tiny, tiny little level. And so we're trying to promote for our next upcoming legislative session in the state, which is in 2019, saying, please take our concept and put it into a pilot project. We are not asking for a respite facility connected to everywhere there's a psychiatric crisis unit. Let's start out slow. Let's start out with 3 of them and pilot them.
But you're not talking about a bill yet.
We're talking about a hopeful bill.
Okay, a hopeful bill.
Yeah.
You say a few words about that?
Well, so what it means is we are at the process of all of our state legislators, all 90 of them, have an opportunity 6 months before session starts, which is in February, to do a pre-filing of a bill of saying, I got this good idea, got this good idea, got this good idea. Work on it, turn it into legal and legislative language, and let's pop it up in the docket and say, this is one of the things I'm interested in trying to get other sponsors for, having discussions on. So we're already worked out some of the ideas of where we wanted to, how we want that ship to sail on the opening day of legislative session. So that's the gift of having a pre-session filed bill that we are working, me and a team of probably 30 other folks are working, trying to figure out how do we get our legislators to introduce this before the end of September so it can be on the docket, and then we could take our roadshow and do our sales to them of why this is important, why you should do it, why you should take a certain percent of the mental health budget and invest in peer respite.
How far along are you with this?
It's hard to know because we get an awful lot of high fives and gold stars. Do you know what I mean? And I don't mean that to be terribly facetious or sarcastic, but an awful lot of Oprah Winfrey of, it's so touching and you guys are so amazing. But the challenge is when we start talking about, we'd like to have a little bit more control over the budget and where you direct some of that. It's harder to crack that nut.
Give us some money.
Yeah, let's take some of that money away from those other 300 contracts or from our managed care systems and put it into this. There's a lot of people who already have their teeth into that and don't want to share their part of the pie anymore. So it's challenging. And also there's people who are trying to figure out, are these people who have lived with these horrible experiences, are they able to be competent, responsible, trustworthy, and dependable employees?
They're capable of loving and connecting in the deepest sense of the word with fellow human beings.
Yes, yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure. So our problem, if you're giving away, are we out of time?
We have a couple minutes.
Okay. I say this over and over again. If I'm giving away free ice cream in the parking lot, and your crew, who I think you've given pizza to them tonight, if I'm giving it away but no one knows about it, the ice cream's going bad. If a tree falls in the forest and no one hears it, does it make a noise? If peer services are revolutionizing mental health delivery systems of care and saving money and growing people on natural roads of recovery and deeper relationships with unpaid friends, but no one knows about it, that's the challenge. We have a marketing problem, I think, is the biggest challenge. We have a marketing problem because we don't have a big advertising budget. So I think that's the issue with this, that's trying to educate these legislators who have to understand forestry, Department of Transportation.
And that's what your organizations are about.
That's what we are solely about, trying to break this and understand that and mirror. Why are peer services so essential to having a healthy community for people who live with these kind of issues.
Answer your question. Why are peer services so important?
Peer service is so important because it connects people to a life of meaning, and it also shows people that recovery is possible. I used to go around the state saying I was diagnosed with schizophrenia at 19. People would come up in the audience and said, I'm a schizophrenic. I'd say, well, hold on, back up. What is your name, first of all? I don't think we're in anything. I think that's what your diagnostic label is, but I think you're a human being underneath that. And they said, it's so awesome to meet somebody who was said, you're in a group home, Kevin, at 19 years old. You have severe schizophrenia and paranoia. You're never going to be able to care for yourself, make your own meal, do your own toiletry, anything like that. And then to move beyond it and see other person like, didn't know that was possible. And so that sense of one person meeting another person who's further ahead on the road is life changing. And that's what changed my life.
All right, look at that camera and tell the viewers whatever you want to. You have about a minute or so, one final thought, a message, or whatever.
So my plea is that you contact me and figure out what we're working on and help get behind raising our voice with our local politicians. People who have been there and done that have tremendous ability to offer expertise to our system, and we need to up our volume.
Terrific.
So please get in touch with me. There's lots you can do. Make a phone call, write a letter, come to a conference, talk to Dr. Don, lots of different things. I want to thank you for the platform of doing this.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Boy, that's been terrific. And we'll be doing some more stuff too.
Yeah, yeah.
So a couple of public service announcements, because I like to do those for fun. Thanks for watching. And remember KFC, not Kentucky Fried Chicken, Dr. Don's KFC. Kind, friendly, and charitable. Be
Great,
kind.
very good, kind. Yeah.
Be friendly and be charitable. To you too, and you too, and you too. He always points at you from the control room. And you too. We'll see you next time, and thank you for watching. And I hope you enjoyed this show as much as I did.